人はいつかそれに名をつけた
The following events took place several years after Sid made contact with the abbot of Kadia's abbey. Hive's workers continued to almost systematically succumb to the effects of monoshock syndrome. At the time, both the abbey and the newly constructed Zhevitz Medical Hospital resources were stretched quite thin. But at long last, the day came when the frost that had been accumulating on the status quo of our grief was finally shattered. One of the abbey's affiliates had attained irrefutable evidence concerning collaboration with Hive's Corporation by both the Cadian government and board of academics. While finding this sowed great discord between the abbey and government, the evidence only served to strengthen the ties between Zhevitz Enterprise and the abbey. The unprecedented five-party situation we all found ourselves in was incredibly peculiar. Despite the awkwardness of it all, life moved on. Rune, who would be designated as the de facto successor to Zhevitz Enterprise, proactively fostered an interest in his father's line of work and often conducted his own study and research on the topic of mana. As I mentioned previously, Rune was the brightest boy I ever had the pleasure of meeting, and he even proved my convictions with his superb academic performance. In all honesty, Rune genuinely enjoyed the pursuit of knowledge, even though he always complained to Eileen that his studies at the academy weren't challenging enough. That comment alone left a long-lasting and profound impression on me. However, there was always one thing that Rune had to pursue. He always had to keep his eyes on Rune, who was indeed an unusual, difficult child to deal with. Particularly, she was frequently observed to be inflicting physical pain onto others and with a large grin on her face. No matter what she did, and no matter who she did it to, her actions dealt psychological damage and imparted unpleasant memories towards the targets of her destructive demeanor. When she was about 6 years old, though, Rune's latest act escalated beyond the point of no return. She used a stick and stabbed out the left eye of Marcus Crowley's, her twin nephew, blinding him. Oh, I thought it was his son. The Crowleys have all the reason in the world to be upset. As do we. No kidding. What could have caused Rune to do such a horrible thing? That's what I'd to know, Albie. Eileen. My wife's heartbroken, Albie. You know how she can be. She puts on a smile in the face of every difficult thing in life. But now, she's starving her fragile body. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm concerned about Rune. I hope he doesn't feel any shame or discomfort from his incident. Albus, I think this might be a good opportunity for us. Yeah. He's almost at that age too. I think he's ready to start carrying some of the weight. He's become lost in his own stream of consciousness. Soon after the incident with the Crowley's boy, Sid withdrew Rune from the academy. Oh. No overt reason was ever given for the move, but I learned why soon after. The day after withdrawing Rune from school, Sid brought the 10-year-old boy to my laboratory at Zhevitz Enterprise headquarters and assigned him to serve as our company's youngest intern. Laboratory 9 brought the brightest brains from around the outer pole into one facility. Rune with the trauma from wrangling Rune off the Corrales boy, redirected all of his energies to observing and shadowing our research. Sid hoped that the constant exposure to that environment would somehow assist in grooming him into a capable leader, but Rudo was not without his shortcomings. He would enter our laboratory every morning and leave with us every evening. As an unforeseen consequence, we practically turned the boy into a complete introvert. His ability to absorb and intake all of our research was incredible. However, whenever we asked for his thoughts on devising a new application for our research on a real-world scale, he always struggled greatly with conception. For all of his brilliance and willingness to learn new things, Rudo lacked an active imagination, leading to difficulties conceptualizing and innovating new applications for mana. He didn't have the fire for innovation that Sid had as a child. Additionally, Rudo had an unusual penchant for being overly courteous, polite, and reserved. While these traits were not faults per se, they were often perceived as weaknesses. In time, the consensus of Laboratory 9's members was that no matter how much they tried grooming Rudo to become his father, he would never escape Sid's shadow. Years after Rudo began his internship at Laboratory 9, the day finally came when the Peacekeepers released Rune from house arrest as penance for her actions against Marcus Corrales. During the years, she was taught by her home tutor, who would often bring her by Laboratory 9 in order to expand her horizons. Who would have thought, though, it wouldn't be her horizons that needed the expanding, but our own? It became evident, the more she stopped by Laboratory 9, that her intelligence surpassed Rudo's. She could conceptualize and imagine the scenarios that Rudo could not. Several months after her first visit, she came to us and handed us a solution for a key issue that had confounded us all for some time, in regards to the power source for the sister project's automatons. Rune inherited both her father's brilliance and fire for innovation, but was crippled by the absence of emotional registry, while Rudo struggled with conceptualization, but possessed his mother's compassion. In fact, I dare say that Rune could have easily surpassed Sid in terms of innovation, as her submitted solution came in depth, and far sooner than any proposal by Sid. We all came to the realization that Rune might one day be the one to succeed Sid. However, our recognition of Rune's contributions to the Sisters Project caused Rudo to silently, but gradually, lose confidence. And yet, oddly enough, he exhibited neither jealousy nor malice. In fact, after she was released from the Peacekeeper's order, Rudo and Rune appeared to be far more cordial to each other than before. His confidence renewed, he began taking a more active role at Laboratory 9 and was promoted from intern to research assistant. Somehow, his seeming lack of an ambitious choice of post felt similar to an admission of defeat, an open acknowledgement to Rune's talents. My theory became even more evident after Rune chose to become an intern and continued to overshadow Rudo's contributions to our research. I suspected that Rune, even though she appeared to be on cordial terms with her brother, was almost intentionally trying to mentally break Rudo into a sense of inferiority. The subtleness of the entire situation was off-putting, but it only ever appeared that Rune was earnestly assisting Rudo in his research. I found it dubious that anyone not close to the siblings would have noticed the sparse instances Rune's of animosity towards Rudo. In fact, my concerns were reaffirmed one day after both Sid and Eileen came seeking my advice on the matter. Look, I'm not against sending her off to school, but I just don't see the point. I've heard you already, Sid. Now, I want to hear what Albus has to say about the matter. Please, Albus, be honest with me. You and this big oaf over here are the only people I can trust, so please don't mince words. Regarding whether or not you both should chance sending Rune to school, I don't find any issue with the proposition. 6 years have passed since the incident with the Crowley's boy, and personally, I feel that's been more than long enough. Now we're talking about different things here, Albie. You know all about the incredible work she's done for us. What's the point in sending her to school now, when there's nothing to challenge her? I just don't think it's worth anyone's time. I'm also referring to the social aspect, Sid. I believe that she ought to make some friends her own age. Aside from Rudo, there's no one else in her life that she can even remotely relate to. She's growing up and missing out on everything her peers experience. And what about all the experiences we missed out on, Albus? We didn't go to school, and we just turned out fine. I absolutely agreed with Albus. I'd rather that she enjoy life free from the constraints of a dimly lit laboratory. I want her to experience, and hopefully embrace, her femininity. Haha, I never thought I'd ever hear you advocate for a setting that's non-conducive towards education. You know me better than that, Albus. There's a fine balance that must be struck. She'll never learn about all the other possibilities in life if she continues producing nothing but brilliance in a laboratory. I'm not blaming either of you. I am glad that she is assisting our goal of helping the Abe's sisters, but I also want her to interact with other children her age. Eileen has a compelling argument, Sid. You know me, Albie. I'll converse with folks, no problem. Heck, I'll even argue with them until I'm blue in the face. But I learned how to interact with others over time, without formal instruction, and if I could learn, anyone can. Why did I marry such a stubborn oaf? Sid, you also forget that your genius and intellect were unlike that of any typical 11-year-olds. Yes, neither of us had any academic involvement because we couldn't afford it. And yes, we turned out much better than most, but sometimes even I regret missing out on the life I could have had. Regret shouldn't regret. I regret nothing about the choices I've made, old friend. My word on the matter is to let Rune decide for herself. I agree to disagree with the both of you, but I won't force my daughter to do anything that she doesn't want to do. Ha ha ha. Neutral to the very end. Do you agree with him then, Albus? I do. But what I have to say is of little significance. Ultimately, you both have to come to an agreement, as parents, regarding the best course to take with your gifted child. However, I suggest that you both take into account what she wants and respect whatever decision she makes. And with that said, I will assume that she'll enjoy a change of setting as well. I'll see to it that she undergoes a physical evaluation. I'll set up an appointment at our hospital and forward the results to whichever institution you both decide to send her to. Thank you for this, Albus. I appreciate you doing this. I'm sure Rune will appreciate a change of scenery more. Several weeks later, before they enrolled Rune into Kadia's Academy for the Gifted, I conducted the final phase of her physical evaluation. Using a procedure known as mana resonance imaging, I captured a cross-section image of her cerebral cortex in order to determine that she was free from any neural abnormalities. This isn't right. This can't be right. Is the MRI properly calibrated? Unfortunately, it is calibrated. I personally witnessed it being serviced by one of our contractors who went through every step in the book before having me sign off on the job. I personally tested before putting the pen to the paper, Director. Director Foster, this image, it can't be right. Is this really Rune's cross-section? Not only can this not be right, it's downright impossible. This image suggests that the daughter of our CEO cannot register or regulate any emotions. Absolutely absurd! This is unheard of. No human has ever been born without the capability of registering emotions. Fothal, Nietzsche, I need you to both to keep the findings of this image to yourselves. You must not allow this news to be leaked under any circumstance. This would deal irreparable damage to Eileen if she ever found out. I will disclose these findings to the CEO personally when the time is right. We had discovered that a crucial segment of her cerebral cortex, in the division involved mostly with emotional registration and regulation, was non-existent. The two other researchers who were present hadn't a single inclination to the significance of the finding. I consulted several Zhevitz medical staff in regard to the absence of this crucial segment, who all opined the impossibility of its absence. With all these statements in mind, we began to doubt the effectiveness of the MRS, which was still a relatively new invention. But for all of our doubts, there was at least one person who understood our findings and believed them with all their hearts. The day I disclosed this matter to Sid, Rune had been secretly listening in on our conversation. Unlike myself, Sid, and the other two laboratory researchers, he was convinced by these findings because he had seen things that none of us ever had. It was several months after Rune began attending the academy before Rune opened up on the matter. This isn't a research journal. A book titled The Detection of Deception? It's a textbook concerning the nature of dishonesty and the psychological techniques used to positively identify deception. Uncle Albus. Oh, good evening, Rune. Do you have some time? I need to talk to you. What's the matter, Rune? I couldn't believe my ears. He suddenly began accusing Rune of decapitation and slaughtering animals for no better reason except to derive joy from watching them succumb to their injuries. There was no indication of such behavior after the incident with the Crowley's boy, so I could hardly be faulted for taking his claims with a shovelful of salt. I had suspected that this was Rune's way of seeking retribution against Rune, using the image from the MRI as a pretense to justify his claim. There were plenty of possible motives to cite as well, namely Rune's crucial contributions to our research. Ultimately, without solid evidence to support his claims, I could only perceive Rune's allegations as desperate and could not find it in my heart to believe a single word he said. I don't expect you to believe it though, Uncle Albus. That's quite an allegation, Rune. Did you tell your parents yet? Not directly. Not like how I told you just now. I beat around the bush, hinting that Rune could be up to her old ways. If I told her everything, exactly as I saw it, I just didn't want my mother to suffer again. Wise decision. That's why I wanted to consult you, Uncle Albus. Nobody else will believe my word over hers. That's not an entirely inaccurate assessment. I suggest keeping a close eye on her, Rudo. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to let me know. But, as it stands right now, you do not have any evidence supporting your claims of Rune's wrongdoing. Without proof, your allegations carry no weight. Ask anyone else, and they'd immediately dismiss your claims as hearsay. What happens if you call on them to corroborate your claims, and they feign ignorance? I'm aware of that. Very good, then. Also, is this book yours? Rudo, you don't seriously believe that your little sister is being deceitful, do you? I do. How could you think that of Rune? Has she ever uttered a single falsehood in her life? That's what the book is for. What I can say for certain is that although she may appear innocent, that book describes several visual cues for deception and deceit, all which apply to Rune. Such as, for example, a habitual liar is often observed to externally project and embody a capricious persona. They do not like being confined to one space after disseminating the deceit, and have a tendency to migrate in order to spread their deception to a wider audience. While I can't comment on the first, I do recall Rune saying that she wished she could leave the outer pole one day. I wasn't finished yet, Uncle Albus. They always have wear a smile on their face to mask their deceit. Although the presence of a smile is evident, the rest of the face remains expressionless and unengaged. I'm sure you noticed, but outside of Laboratory 9, Rune isn't very well received in the eye of the public. I asked several people for their thoughts, and they all said it was because when they talk to her, she appears despondent and lifeless. This reaction can be classified as instinctive ignorance. There is no greater psychological fear than the unknown. Should a habitual liar don the veil of intentional ignorance to all others in order to assume the essence of the unknown? Then they strive to become an entity to be feared. I think Rune is intentionally invoking this practice of instinctive ignorance in order to elicit negative feelings from normal people. Moreover, after reading this, I believe that she is plotting something terrible. She's keeping us all blind with her brilliance, but deep down, I know that she's up to something far, far worse than what she did to Marcus Growley's. Just hold on a moment, Rudo. You're leaping to conclusions here, without a shred of substance. You know as well as I do that Rune has been nothing but good and obedient. Now, I am not disregarding your allegations, but as an adult, I am compelled to judge and rule only after I hear both sides of the story. As it stands, your accusations against your own sister are insubstantial and incredibly hurtful. I apologize, Uncle Albus. I may have gone too far. In retrospect, Rudo didn't go too short or too far, but he just didn't have any proof of Rune's impending plot. I still remember every word he disclosed to me that day, but I didn't believe him. I made the worst mistake of my life that day, and I've been repenting for it ever since. Several weeks later, Eileen collapsed after drinking her laced tea, and days afterwards, 12 executives from different territories on the outer pole were poisoned by the immunostimulant. Rune had all but vanished by then, but we would soon reunite in the most unfortunate way imaginable. En route to Kadiasport, a cargo ship discovered her body adrift in the ocean and unloaded it at the dock. Eileen, her heart and soul broken by the death of her daughter, was hospitalized for several weeks until she, too, drew her final breath. My mistake for not believing Rudolph cost me the lives of two people whom I held dear to my heart. Their deaths set in motion a chain reaction, resulting in what would become the first collapse of Zhevitz Enterprise. Traumatized and clinically depressed over the deaths of his wife and daughter, Sid had become a shell of his former self. Even though he still had both Rudo and myself around to support him through the dark times, he would not listen to either of us. From that day forward, he stopped caring about the company from we built from the ground up and confined himself to Laboratory 9. He sought solace and solitude in the laboratory where he would spend the remainder of his life. One day, however, the status quo instilled by Eileen and Rune's tragic deaths was broken. When the Sisters Project was nearing its final day of development, we had produced several prototypes for detecting colored mana within our mana mine, contrary to the altered purpose of the project. The Abbé staunchly refused to accept Eileen's proposed charity, so we reverted the unit back to prioritize mana dosing. Once the board of directors had convened to address the issue of the deployment date for the prototypes, Sid burst into the boardroom. Whoa, he's grown up. Look at him. Sid, you want the sisters to be compensated for their work? Yes, I want them paid for the work that they do. Why? What purpose would that serve? We're barely keeping our finances in the black as it is. And you want to start compensating our automatons for labor? We owe them. We owe them? No, I owe them. See that they're all added to the payroll, or I'll make your heads roll. But sir, are you certain, Chief Director Zhevitz? I leave the paperwork in your capable hands, boys. Just hold on a moment, Sid. You just can't threaten to fire them if they disobey a questionable order. Could you at least provide us with a reason? What makes you think that I have to provide any reason? I own this company. And even if I did, none of you pea-brains would even believe me. Do what I pay you all to do, and maybe y'all get to keep your jobs. What is the matter with you, Sid? The people in this room are the lifeblood that kept Zhevitz Enterprise going all these years. You can't treat them like expendable servants. I'm the damn CEO, Albus. What I say goes, and I expect the same from the co-founder of my company. CEO? Some CEO you are, father. You haven't shown your face for so long, and you don't even know how close we are to diving deep into financial debt. What did you say, boy? Are you trying to commit financial suicide by driving your own company into bankruptcy? What kind of CEO threatens his employees, the people who made his company run for years and years, with financial instability and termination? Did you lose your brilliant mind and moral compass while you locked yourself up in Laboratory 9 all these years? I'm glad my mother isn't alive to see the degenerate that you've become. Well, what do you know? The little shy shit. Oh wow, that's a swear. The little shy shit I had for a son is slipping off to his old man, and for all his brains, he never had half of the brilliance of his sisters. What's the matter with you? Get a grip. I don't need a child to fuss over me. Empty out your ears and listen, because I'm only gonna say this once. This is my company. I built it from nothing. And if it damn well pleases me, I will return it to nothing. If you don't want that to happen sooner, then get your asses into gear and put the pen to the paper. And if anyone interferes in any way with my sir, sir, Sid is vomiting blood. Chief Director Zhevitz, are you okay? Leave me. Chief. Damn it. Oh. Rune reached out to me later that night. Rune. Tell me, Albus. Define Rune Zhevitz for me. Come again? I don't have a clear definition for that individual, because when I looked into the mirror this morning, I didn't know who it was that was staring back at me. The only thing I knew about him was that he didn't feel a single shred of remorse when he learned of his little sister's passing. Instead, what was filled in the place of remorse was shameless relief. Rune! Rune should have never been born. She should have died as an infant, before she destroyed my family. That undefined reflection in the mirror felt liberated after her death. And all that remained of that boy was a heartless shell of his former self. So tell me, Albus, did the boy, the Rune Zhevitz that you knew, did he truly feel at peace after the passing of his little sister? Did he take great delight, knowing that at long last she would never be a threat to another living creature? Or was he pleased because his source of endless enmity was gone for good? Or did he owe a debt of gratitude to the little sister that he lost? Because even she, that infamous little hellion, imparted a gift unto him before she departed from this world. She taught him, in all her infinite and accursed wisdom, that humans are fragile, emotional creatures. Both are a hindrance to progress, which may only be made via logical decisions under a constant hail of chaos. An individual whose every decision is compelled by their emotions cannot hope to shield himself and those he cares about under an umbrella of logic, lest he seeks to drown himself and those around him in the ensuing deluge. My father is a prime example of her lesson. He would sooner drown everyone in this company under his misguided philanthropy than survive under an umbrella of logic. Rune! We are prisoners in the prison known as the Outer Pole. Sid Zhevitz, a once radical, innovative, and brilliant mind who attempted to escape its walls through logic and ingenuity, has fallen prey to his own emotions. The only one who can continue to shield Zhevitz Enterprise from the ensuing hail of chaos is me. I shall become a leader driven by logic and press forth against the deluge of lunacy. Following the conversation we had that evening Rune had begun experiencing an unprecedented and explosive transformation. What emerged from the chrysalis that my precious friend's son had willingly entered was a cold and callous shadow of his former self. His inability to innovate on the science and technological front still remained, even as he matured, but the most noticeable change was the sudden emergence of CEO material. Rune channeled his brilliance of conventional codes, law, and management into practice, and single-handedly hauled Zhevitz Enterprise out of the financial red. In truth, Sid never cared for the financial and managerial side of running Zhevitz Enterprise, but Rune unexpectedly excelled in the field that his father forsook. In an effort to cover up the tragedy his sister left behind, Rune continued to surprise us all with his poignant proposal and innovative ideas. His most impressive innovation was a contemporary system known as the stock market, which was widely implemented around the entirety of the outer pole. He even brought in our company's main investors, established a board consisting of these individuals, known as the board of directors, and essentially conducted a complete reform of what was once a private enterprise. Rune, I can't seem to find my sheet anywhere. Am I so insignificant that I slipped your mind? Certainly not, Director Growlies. We do have your seat in this room. And I'm telling you that my seat ain't in this damn room, Rune. You and your family owe me for what your sister did to my boy. You haven't forgotten, have you? My boy is blind. My wife left me. My family has been destroyed. Our lives are ruined. And it's all because of that accursed girl. Your father was sympathetic to my plight when he offered me a position of power on this board. But are you? You don't intend to force a man whose life your sister destroyed out of a lifelong position that was promised by the founder, do you? For the love of mana, the founder has lots of marbles. His son disregards reparations owed to the family's victims, and his daughter was a damn psychopath. Is insanity imprinted in the blood of every Zhevitz? It's been 10 years since I reluctantly accepted your father's offer to sit on this board. And while this may be all that I have, my seniority guarantees that I can make your life miserable if you don't fetch my damn seat. Director Growlies, did you just threaten? Interesting observation, Director. My life can be guaranteed misery if I do not fetch your seat. Correct? Oh, I find it oh so fascinating how those with seniority can fancy themselves into senility. Excuse me? Say that one more time, you son of a... Director Growlies, do you know where it is you stand at this very moment? You stand center stage, exactly in the spotlight for everyone to behold, discern, and dissect. Director, you are akin to the residual smudge of a greasy fingerprint on the pane of a glass window. You exist only as a stain in the history of this company. However, the more the stain stands out in the spotlight, the more intolerable it becomes to observe. I take it we have a mutual understanding then. Rest assured, Director Growlies, while my family may have been responsible for your family's collapse, we have since set aside 2 individual corporate accounts for your son and an estranged wife. Your son will only be able to claim his when he's considered a legal adult, of course. And although you may have disdain for the lofty life you've earned for yourself, I'm certain that they're making full use of the lifelong reparations provided to them. Why, you son of a... Yourself, like many others sitting on this board, have become liabilities to the longevity of the company and will ultimately be purged from this body in an inferno. What? Damn you. Who do you think you are, you son of a bitch? I don't have to take abuse from a little shit like you. Son of a bitch. I've got my eye on you, Zhevitz. You've been warned. You're gonna regret the day you ever crossed me, Zhevitz. Mark my words. While I couldn't have said that any better, I believe some restraint may have been in order. Restraint? From whom? From Director Crowley's. He's not worth our concern or time, Albus. He has more to be concerned than myself. Now that the company is set to go public, who knows what will happen to us? Whatever happens, however, only time will tell. And indeed, Rudo's foreboding predictions became a reality for us all to face. We lost many of the remarkable and talented individuals who had supported Zhevitz Enterprise over the years. In the place of these old friends were fresh new faces, gathered from throughout the entirety of the Outer Pole. 1 year later, Rudo, with all of his innovative reforms implemented, and having been thoroughly proven over the course of the year, had hoisted Zhevitz Enterprise up from the abyss, sparing the company from corporate collapse. In turn, the company's recovery will eventually allow us to compete on equal terms with Hyvis again. With his stock market in hand, Rudo initiated an aggressive campaign to expand the company's influence and image through investments from the general public. In many ways, Rudo's empowerment of the people by encouraging them to invest in the company had done many things that neither Sid nor myself could accomplish in the early days of founding Zhevitz Enterprise. Additionally, the advent of Rudo's stock market made the value of lifelong employment at Hyvis seem like a rather incentive-less venture for many people. Realizing that there was no way for Hyvis to degrade our company any further, not with public opinion at risk, both our company and theirs returned to waging a familiar war centered around mana. And we still fight that war, with everything that we created thus far. We used everything from the sisters, the Zhevitz Medica Group, its pharmaceutical manufacturing subsidiaries, the stock market, even technologically driven informatics, with science driving our research into innovative methods to siphon and utilize colored mana, and improving the infrastructure of the Outer Pole. We strove to no longer be known as a god-forsaken continent by the rest of the Inner Pole. Soon after, however, the gods dealt us cruel a hand, forsaking us once more.